All right, here we are. This is Jay Brown Yoga Talks podcast. My name is Jay Brown. If this happens to be the first time that you are listening to this show, let me welcome you. Everybody else, what's up? How are things with you in this moment? Like right now, as you listen to this, is everything okay? I wish to suggest that if there's no immediate distress and like on some baseline level, we're like reasonably okay right now, then let's just be really grateful for that. Because it seems like life is sometimes held together in tenuous threads, you know? And things can shift pretty quickly. And, you know, I have this impulse to say that we're having challenging times, but as I think back over the last 10 years of doing this show, there's been many occasions where I've said, wow, things are really bad right now. And in some ways, compared to the last few years, things are actually a little bit better right now, I would say. To be real, given everything that's happened in the last, say, 5 years, right now, things aren't as crazy as they were. And at the same time, they feel crazier than ever, don't they? And I was reflecting back on a conversation I had here on this show many years ago with Carol Horton, and it was about paradigm shifts and how there's a moment of crisis when the old paradigm is collapsing and the new paradigm has yet to emerge. And back when we talked about that years ago, I felt like that's what was happening. The old paradigm's collapsing and we don't know what the new paradigm is yet. And I guess I just never thought about, one, how long a process that might be and how much overlap there would be. I guess something in my mind sort of imagined like, oh, it's going to collapse and then the new thing will emerge. But there's more blur. It's like things are collapsing as things are emerging. And I'm sort of been observing that quite a bit, especially over the last several weeks. If you've been listening to the conversations I've been having about if it's possible to make a living as a yoga teacher and like what's happening out there. And, you know, I had thought that we were going to take some break from that. And we are sort of in many regards today, but it turns out there's more to be had there. I've had a number of people reach out to me and I've recorded one or two already. So we're not quite done with doing the assessment that we've been doing. But I have been observing the way, in some regards, there does feel to be some new paradigm emerging. And that new paradigm really is looking to draw from some things in the past. Like I've been talking about like things coming round again and looking to get back to certain essences and things that are dear to us that may have been swept by the wayside as everything got marketed. And yet there's also still like a wanting to hold on to the things from the past that we cherish, but those do sort of seem to be collapsing in certain ways. And there's could not be more an example of what I'm talking about than what we're going to talk about today with my guest, Mariela Cruz. I had not met Mariela before this conversation. I learned about her because I received several emails, like 3 or 4 at least, from listeners asking me if I had read Mariela's blog post entitled The Death of My School in Mysore. And first of all, it blew my mind that the way that I was learning about this was through a WordPress blog post, not like a tweet. And Mariela's post was quite provocative. And as we discussed some, I was a little bit hesitant to, have a conversation about what's going on in the Ashtanga world right now, because it's not my community directly. And the guru, the leader of that school, Sharath Jois, passed away only a few months ago. And so many people are feeling such sadness and grief over that. At the same time, Mariela, she raises really important questions that I think are well beyond just the Ashtanga community. And I wanted to get like direct from the people involved what's going on. I didn't want it to be hearsay. So I was really grateful that Mariela agreed to come on and talk with me about it. And I'm glad to be sharing it with you today. Real quick before we get to it, let me mention that if you enjoy this show and you would want to connect with me in other ways outside of just listening, there's opportunities to do that. I've got ongoing live classes and a weekly discussion group and on-demand continuing education. Or maybe you would like to become a supporter and get access to the full-length archives of the show with a podcast premium subscription. You can find all of my stuff at jbrownyoga.com. Okay, I think we'll just leave it there. We've got stuff to get to today, so let's do that. I will touch base with you on the other side, but for now, let's listen to this conversation that I had with Mariela Cruz. Hello.
Hi, Jay. Hello.
Hi, Mariela. Pleasure to meet you.
How are you? Nice to meet you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I don't know how much you've listened to the show, but I'm already recording. So please, let's consider ourselves having just begun. Would that be okay with you?
Yes, perfect. Great. I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
Well, I appreciate having this moment to speak with you. I have been following your blog posts, and not only I have, frankly, longtime listeners of this show know that over the years, I have sort of had conversations on this show that went to sort of pressing issues in the yoga world and sometimes controversies within the yoga world, even within the Ashtanga community in the past.
Yeah.
And just to say about that off top, I look back at those conversations and I feel like I have evolved quite myself since that time. And I think I would not approach people in the same way that I sometimes did in the past. I think in the past, I created kind of like sometimes this adversarial relationship where I was going to hold someone to account for what people were saying about them on Facebook or something.
Uh-huh.
So I've moved away from that. And that is why I sort of hesitated even to have this conversation, because I wanted to be very respectful of my friends within the Ashtanga community who are still grieving.
Of course.
However, I will say that at least 4 people emailed me and said, "Did you see this, Jay?" And it was the blog post that you wrote at the beginning of last month.
Yeah.
And I have been sort of following since. And I felt like you raised some really important and, necessary questions that were relevant, not just to people in the Ashtanga world, but like anybody who calls himself a yoga teacher in some regards. In terms of like where we look to for authority or like who holds the wisdom in yoga now.
Yes.
So I just thought that they were super important questions. And that's why I decided, okay, I think we can find a way to do it. And especially because you do have a personal relationship to Sharath as well. So you're not like some outsider throwing stones or something.
Yeah, of course. I'm not at all.
No, not at all. And I would also say that in getting ready to speak with you, I, to be frank, wasn't totally familiar with you, but it's clear that you're well known among people in the Ashtanga community because you've been around for a long time.
Yes.
And I will also put into the mix, and this is all by way of me trying to give us a little bit of introduction and set some context for our conversation today. The other day I was having a conversation with some folks who are doing some training with me, and some of the folks a lot of the people I meet nowadays are just coming into yoga now in like the last 5 years, maybe.
Uh-huh.
And getting ready to speak with you and reading what you've been writing about and talking about, it just became abundantly clear like how drastically things have changed in the sense that people coming into yoga in the last 5 years it's a completely different context than for people who came into yoga at another time. And I think there's actually kind of stages, like folks who came in the early 90s and the early 2000s, it was one thing. And then even by the time it was like 2012 to 2018, it was like another thing. There's sort of stages.
Yes.
And you seem to me to be someone who has witnessed that as well. And so all of this is to say, I'm glad to have this moment to speak with you. And I appreciate you making this time. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for giving me the space. And as you say, it's not about creating more controversy. I think in March is gone. It's enough. But there are some points that need to be raised. And as you say, not only for the Ashtanga, but for the whole yoga community in the world, especially now after the pandemic. And for me personally, especially now after the death of my dear teacher.
Yes. So I have mentioned on the show that Sharath passed. Yes. And I guess I am curious, before we jump into kind of the more recent stuff that's been going on, just so people, because I imagine a lot of people listening to this might not be familiar with you. Let's give a little bit of history about your relationship to the Ashtanga school and to Sharath. So I did hear you in some other podcasts talk about your mother exposing you to yoga when you were very young.
Yeah, like karma.
Yeah. And that she was Catholic at the same time, which I find very interesting. I mean,
no, my mom was she's very eclectic.
Yes, that's an eclectic mix, I would imagine. But I guess my question is, in your adult life, I know that you also had aspirations to be a pianist at one point, and then ultimately that wasn't supported by family and culture, and you went and were a lawyer for a lot of years. And I know that you have also been mother to quite a bit of children. I'm looking for the note I took. Is it 5 or is it more than 5?
Yeah, there's 6 boys and 1 girl, 7.
7, that's right. So I find that quite amazing. I have 2 children, and so I have some experience, not from the mother perspective, but from the father perspective, and I just know all that goes into that. And so I add all of that because you have a whole other life outside of just your yoga too. Although I imagine you probably don't make too much separation between them. But I guess my question is, was Sharath your first like teacher in your adult life, or did you have like other yoga practice that you did prior to getting into Ashtanga, like after you were an adult and you weren't just going with your mom?
Well, what happened is I was born in Costa Rica, so Costa Rica was really like away from all that trendy yoga revolution in the United States and in Canada, and there was no internet, remember that? So there was only Yoga Journal. And I started going to a class in a gym, like a normal vinyasa class. It was really like new. And then I went to a teacher training in the beach. Costa Rica has beautiful beaches. And there was a couple from Kripalu from New York teaching. And
was that the Stapletons, Dawn and Alma Stapleton?
Yes.
Oh, my Lord.
Yes.
I've met them at Kripalu. They were the sweetest people. I remember them. They had all these wonderful charts up on the walls for their training with these diagrams of all the yoga yoga stuff.
So they built a beautiful, palapa in Costa Rica in the beach, and it was amazing. It was really like a wonderful time. It was the beginning of the 2000. And while I was doing that training, because, I was a lawyer, so I was completely in the academic field, and yoga came to my life to just, help me release stress and, raising all these kids. And So I got really like passionate about it. And then in one of their trainings, I met the first Ashtangi women that I ever met. And she was from the US. And she gave me a password. She said, Patabhi Jois. That's what she said. Patabhi Jois. And I had never considered going to India, Jay. I was like, no, it's too far. It's too like dangerous. I have kids. I don't want to go there and get lost. And then, as it happens, the guru energy starts pulling you. And that's what happened to me. I thought that it would be with Patabhi Jois, but it was not Patabhi Jois. It was with Sharath.
Was Patabhi Jois was still alive at that time, though, wasn't he?
Yeah. It was 2003 when I met. They had just moved from the old Shala to the Gokulam Shala in the bigger Shala. And I just knocked on the door, because there was no internet. We just go and say, I want to practice. And when I met Patabhi Jois, well, yeah, he was old and he was there. But when I met Sharath, I really felt like this connection, like instant, like he's my teacher. And it was not easy for me, to travel to India with all these kids, and it was so far.
Wait, can I stop you for a second? I want to ask you about the moment. Was it something he said or just a feeling that you had?
No, it was something he said, because I asked him, I want to practice, but I only have 1 week left because I'm a mother, and I am coming from Costa Rica, it's so far. Please let me practice for 1 week. And he said, no, you stay 1 month. And I said, I cannot, I'm a mother. Sorry, you cannot stay. And that moment I knew that he was serious about the practice, that it was not something like, let's do this and give me your money. And no, it was not about that. It was about a commitment. And that really resonated.
And if we could just pause there for a moment, only because I mentioned this conversation I had the other day with people who come into yoga more recently. And that's kind of what I was saying, that at a different time, there wasn't all these yoga centers and stuff. So if you wanted to learn yoga, you had to find a teacher. And then you often had to convince the teacher that you were serious.
Oh, exactly. Of course.
And this is a perfect example. Like you couldn't just show up and drop in and pay and get the yoga. You had to kind of demonstrate that you were going to make some commitment.
That you deserve the teachings, you understand? So it was so hard for me, Jay. I had to go back to Costa Rica, and I was really angry, saying, if I had not been a mother, then I could have stayed. And then I went back like 2 months, right? 2 months after that, something happened and I had the money and I could go back. And then he accepted me and he taught me on the full primary series. And that
so you went for a month and then...
Yes.
And you had somebody to support you to look after the kids, though, or how old were they by then?
I had so much help, and I can only attribute that to my guru's help, because somehow, I'm a mom of 7. I'm like working as a lawyer. I was like opening the studio. It was too much. And if I look back, I go, there was some grace there. There was some miraculous help there. I could not have done it on my own.
Okay, so you go for that first month and he teaches you primary, is that what you said?
Yeah, and he starts me in intermediate. Yeah.
Oh, because you picked it up quick then, right?
Yeah, I was really like, I used to be a dancer and also a musician, so I really enjoy the practice because it was like dancing. It was like this connection between, it was like also like music, like these crescendos in the practice and then these like adagios, and I was completely just engaged. And I went back to Costa Rica and I already knew the practice because he had taught it to me, and my friends wanted to learn it, of course. And then that's how my studio was in the second floor of my home. That's how my studio started. Yes.
And I heard you say, and I don't know if you can make the claim that it was like one of the first like Ashtanga shalas in Central America. Is that true?
Yeah, it was. I was the first authorized teacher in Central America, and Latin America was still like waking up, to yoga.
Mm-hmm.
The US was already going full, so I started, also practicing with Richard Freeman in Boulder and Mary Taylor, and then Tim Miller in California. And I was really like having this thirst for that practice. And then I started going once a year to Mysore. That was my appointment with my Guruji. And then he would come and travel, go to his tours, and and then the students started coming in San Jose, in the capital city of Costa Rica. Mm-hmm.
I see. So in that earlier time, you never practiced with Patabhi Jois, only Sharath?
No, I did, of course, but Patabhi Jois was already old. He used to sleep in the middle of the count.
Yeah.
So in Mysore, he would come in and cover for him. And I always felt that Sharath was my teacher. He was adjusting me. He was telling me what to do. Patabhi Jois was there all still until 2009. But Sharathji was, since I stepped into the Shala, he was my teacher. I mean, I have no doubt about that.
I see. All right. So I guess from there, my question has to do with the Ashtanga practice itself. And like when I did practice Ashtanga for a brief period of time. It was back in the early days in New York City, where if you really wanted to get Ashtanga, you went to Eddie Stern's place.
Sure, yeah, I was there a couple of times.
So you were there, yeah. So you remember
the blue door.
Yeah. So I did go to some lead practices there, but it wasn't my jam or whatever, and I guess I was somewhat intimidated by it. It was very hard edged.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of like if you didn't do it correctly, they sent you to the back of the room. You know what I mean? Like, and the adjustments were like, no joke, and they weren't like, it wasn't like consent chips and stuff, So I guess I ask you about it because I know that you went through many pregnancies over the years. And I mean, Don and Amba, they were the total softies, if I remember.
Yeah, they're so beautiful.
So I guess what was it about the Ashtanga practice? And did you not think it was hard edged, or were there not times where you felt you were being pushed too hard physically by the school or by a teacher?
What happens is, as a mother of 7, my pain threshold is very, very high, with all the pregnancies and having natural labors and everything. So, and also I was also very physical since I was a kid. I was a swimmer and then became a dancer, and then I was into aerobics and I was into gymming, and I was always, movement meant a lot to me. It was a way of feeling clearer mentally for all my studies in law and my master's. And so, feeling the body, I am very kinesthetic. So I liked the practice. I like it because I was naturally flexible, but I was not strong. And with all the pregnancies, the body really changes. So it was a way to finding my center again. And then when he started me in 3rd series, that was in 2007, then I had 3 more babies because I remarried, and I was like, my practice was completely destroyed, Jay. And he would always tell me, you come. That's what he would say. He never pressured me. Like, you have nothing. He said, you come. When you can, you come. And that gave me that support without feeling like I had to do anything, beyond my means, which were a lot of 7 series, we call it, motherhood and, late nights. And I was still teaching, so I always felt his support, even though I could not, let's say, perform physically as I used to because of all these babies.
Okay, well, then my question is, I guess it has to do with like the practice being oriented around like doing the sequences in asana. And then like, even when you say, because I'm not in a physical state to do it, I just won't do it. There's still kind of a thing like being advanced would mean being able to do it. Or I guess the question is, do you think that I guess that's my impression. Has there been some kind of evolution over the years? Has there been some kind of softening within Ashtanga circles about the need to perform the asana?
Well, what happened with me, Jay, since I was so busy with my children and everything, and that month in Mysore meant so much for me. I would just go to the shala and arrive. The first week I was super jet lagged. Second, third week, I was improving a little bit. And fourth week, I had to return to Costa Rica. So my intention was always to go and, drink from the well, drink from the source. So my approach was very precise. I was just going with a really determined intention to learn. So I was not very much ever in social circles, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you weren't necessarily going to conferences or whatever, or...
No, in conference, of course, with him and everything, but the social thing in Mysore and the parties and the...
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I actually went to India in 1998, and I was in Mysore, and the person I was traveling with, we walked by the shala, and there was some folks standing out front who were wearing yoga pants and looked like the people we knew in New York, and we didn't go in because there was a bit of a scene by that time already, wasn't there?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was never into that. I really wanted to go and learn and then bring the knowledge to my students. That was my main intention. And, I also had a home that was a shala, so my kids were all being raised in the yoga and the practice and the diet and the rituals, it was just it was kind of like this ashram. It was a very big house.
And so was the shala that you were doing, was it like a Mysore room? Were you teaching just the way that you were being taught, or did you adapt it for the people who were coming more or whatever?
No, I was doing the Mysore program. Yeah, he authorized me in 2007.
I see.
And I started teaching them the daily Mysore. And it was a deep commitment for me, Jay. It was very sacred and very, I felt very blessed, that I was in Costa Rica in the middle of the jungle and that someone had come to me with that password. Otherwise, I don't think I would have ever even thought of traveling to India. And then finding a teacher, and then finding a teacher that was supporting me no matter what I was going through. If I was pregnant, if I was okay, it was a very sacred relationship for me that helped me grow a lot out of my conditioning. Because as a woman, as a Latin American woman, we are raised with so many restrictions regarding what it means to be a woman. So I had to go through a lot of deconditioning, destructuring my whole life, and people saying, "Are you crazy? You have 3 masters in law. What are you doing? You're throwing your life." You were
yeah. Why are you being a yoga teacher? I get it.
Yoga, what? India, what? You're a mother. You should be here with your kids. It's
Isn't that interesting, though? Because I've talked to a lot of people on this show, and there is a sort of unexplainable pull that people have, that some of us have towards it. We don't always know why, but we're like, no, this is the thing I feel passionate about. I need to go this. I need to explore it,
Exactly. I had found my treasure. I was so sure of that.
But it sounds like you were keeping it really homegrown. I was talking about this the other day with people, that I remember at the beginning when people were first kind of when their teachers were saying, go ahead and go and teach this, and they would ask about marketing, they would say, don't do any marketing.
Yeah.
Just let it happen natural. And when the student's ready, they find the teacher or whatever. But at some point, there was a lot of marketing going on, come 2007, I opened a center in 2007 too. And within a few years, there had already been a couple big mega centers that opened up nearby. You know what I mean?
Yes. No, and I'm sure in the US, it moved faster than in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And, the social media started, and then, a different era started. But in the beginning, it was just word of mouth.
Right. Did you ever do any of that? Did you have a website and online registration or any of that stuff? Did you do it or no?
I did have a website, but it was very simple. It was very like, nothing. It's just like my name, the address, and saying, like I remember Dina Kingsbury used to say, this is my home also, so please don't come at any time. Make a phone call before you come.
Right. Come for classes at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. All right. Well, then I guess I feel like at this point, I need to ask you about, sort of the time when, I don't even know, I'm talking around it because I want to be sensitive, but you said that the password was Patabhi Jois. And for a lot of people that isn't the password. And I remember, I had Kino on the show back in April of 2018, I believe it was. And it was when things were first starting to kind of be revealed and people were coming out. And I have such mixed feelings about that episode. Like I said earlier, I'm not so pleased with the way I was in it, and if Kino hears this, maybe she'll listen to this. I don't know. I would never come at someone the way I came at her at that time. I feel like it was unfair of me. But it was the kind of fervor and the thing at the time. And what I think significant about it, as I said earlier, is people like Patabhi Jois and Mr. Iyengar, and even Bikram for a lot of people. These were the people that we looked to. And some people looked at them as gurus more than others. And the people who did look to them as gurus or even kind of made careers on their relationship to Patabhi Jois. When these things came out, and I had Karen Rain on in November of 2018. I have massively mixed feelings about that, but I do think that most people kind of agree that Patabhi Jois had some grave misgivings, and I guess I wonder how you feel about what went down with that. You talked about what it is to be a woman and patriarchy, and a lot of people feel like there was some real abuses that happened there, and that has really soiled people's views. So I don't know, what was that like for you when all that came down, and what's your position on it now?
Oh my God. Well, that's a big question, Jay, because I never ever saw anything weird in the Shala. And when Patabhi Jois was there, he was very old. I mean, he was coming and sleeping, and he was reading the newspaper. I never saw him touch anyone inappropriately or me or nothing. And I always felt Sharath was holding the space with so much integrity. I felt really safe there, always. I never received, neither from my colleagues, neither from Sharath, nothing, not even a vibe, you understand? The energy was very like focus, go deep, drishti, focus on your mat, don't be looking around to anybody, you don't have to, just look within yourself. And when these allegations came, wow, it was very, very painful. It was also very painful personally for me that I did not find in my teacher, in Sharath, like a clear position, I remember he posted something in Instagram and then he deleted it, and it was kind of blurry, like, and all these women saying, this happened to us, and it's so painful, and I felt very, very convulsed inside, and there was never clarity around that. And that brings us, to the blind acceptance of the authority figures, which is something that, since you sent me Harmony and Russell's podcast from yesterday, that sometimes, especially when we are women, we're even accepting the blame for what these authority figures have done wrong. And that silence and that thing that, you saw it, but no, it's the guru's prerogative to do whatever. And I thought, well, that was completely like shattering for many of us. And we did not find an explanation. Personally, I never found it. He never spoke of it again. So that was like...
And you didn't feel like you needed to ask him about it?
The thing is, like, the recent events of February have brought a lot of light to my own path. Because the thing here is like whoever challenges the predominant narrative in this sort of community is going to be demonized, like it has happened to me. Because, I was a whistleblower and I said, this is not correct. Like Sharath used to say, posture not correct. And it has a lot of, you're fearful that the community is going to just ostracize you and that you're crazy and I read all the comments that they were saying, for example, about Karen, and it was so painful, like she was coming out after so many years, and you don't come out until you're ready to come out.
Yeah.
That's what happens. And for me, that was a red flag. And I did not say anything to my teacher, because I felt he was already very worried and very I could feel he was.
There was also kind of a weird moment at some point in there where they did kind of like, there was like, for a second, there was Jois yoga, and it seemed like some wealthy students were sort of trying to like seize the brand or something, but then it changed and became Sharath yoga. Do you remember? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do I remember that right?
Yeah, the studios in Australia and in Miami, and I understand.
I just remember that it kind of came back, and there was such a strong reaction against it. Like I remember like the initial like ad campaign that they put out or whatever. People really didn't like it, and then it kind of disappeared. I don't really know the backstory about that, but I remember that happening. And then it did seem to kind of orient around Sharath, and it seemed like he kind of took the reins.
Yeah, and then he just, I think it was around 2015 that he really like embodied his position as leader of the community. When Patabhi Jois died in 2009, I was there in the first, let's say, teachers training that he did for us. And he gathered us right away after Patabhi Jois was dead in June 2009. And we were with him, and he was, he was very sad, and it was a huge, karma for him, he was handed the thing and you have to do it.
Yeah. Huge.
So
it's a huge thing to have to try to walk in those feet. And then especially after everything that came out, I don't even know how you would do it.
Exactly. It was a huge karma for him. And he always told us, we would come to thank him and he would say, it's my duty. So I really feel he grew into the position, because I was there. I saw him mature and become more empowered and speak, more. And because he was very shy, and he blossomed into his dharma, let's say that. But yeah, that for me, now that I go back, that was a red flag. It was just like there was no clear explanation of the position of the Shala and of Sharath in front of those women.
That's why a lot of people left, I think, like Harmony and other folks, I think.
Yes.
They weren't real happy with the way that it wasn't addressed to the degree that they felt comfortable to sort of continue to affiliate directly necessarily, right?
Yeah, some people left there, but some other teachers had already left when he took over.
Sure.
Because I don't know what happened exactly, but some teachers were taken off the list, and I don't know if he was gathering his teachers. I'm not sure what happened there, but some people were very angry.
Well, it is interesting that there's the idea of parampara, and I know even within the tradition that I am inspired by, the Desikachar tradition, when Desikachar passed, his son was taking over. There was a bit of a split of those people who didn't necessarily support that for one reason or another. But it's often within the family that these things go. That's the tradition. It's a family business in a way, almost.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we. And now that he died, we never thought this could happen, and I don't think he thought this could happen.
Yes. Well, let me ask you before.
Ageless, remember?
Yeah. No,
they're saying, okay, he's gonna go 108. And that's
yeah.
I was ready to be there until I was 100.
But it's true. Like when there is a leader or a guru, and the guru passes unexpectedly, and there isn't like a clear line of succession or something. That's what we're looking at. But I guess we jumped ahead. Before we get to that, I guess I want to hear a little bit about in the past. Like I've talked to people who, studied with Patabhi Jois way back in the day, and like some of the earliest authorizations that were given. And like the process of defining authorization and certification, because it wasn't always so defined as it has become.
Yeah.
And the process by which people became authorized or certified has changed a lot since the very beginning.
Yeah, especially lately.
Well, yes, that's what I'm saying. But I want to talk about the past first. Like, what was it in the past? Like, when you first got there, how did someone get authorized? And it seems like Sharath codified it or maybe changed it or at least clarified it when he took over. So what do you remember about what the process was for authorization and certification?
Well, he would come and say, "Come to the office" when he thought you were ready, to get your authorization level 1, which meant that you had his blessing to teach the primary series. So then in that teacher training that I told you about in June 2009, that was the first time he gave us the intermediate series authorization, the level 2.
Now, wait, when he did that, when he called you into the office and said, I think you're ready to teach primary, did he give you a certificate or did you have to pay anything?
No, we just took the course, and at the end of the course, it was a primary series course. He wanted us to learn the vinyasas. He made a test and everything, public test. It was a very intense course. And at the end of the last day, he said, "Okay, I'm gonna do an intermediate lead, and you come." And so we did the intermediate lead, and then he gave us the paper. We didn't even ask for it. He just gave it to us there. It was just like, okay, now you have my blessing to teach primary and intermediate. Wonderful. Okay, that was kind of a surprise for all of us. It was the first group of these because.
And how long did you work with him before he handed you that paper?
Oh, I had been working.
No, I mean like in that course. Like how long was the course?
The course was for a month.
Okay.
But I had already, gone into the intermediate series with him in my annual trips.
Mm-hmm. And the other people who were in that course, had they practiced with him previously too, or had some people just come for the month-long training?
Not all of us got it. That's what I remember.
Oh, I see. Not everybody got the cert or the authorization at the end.
Authorization level 2, only a few of us who had already completed the second series with him.
I see.
And then, we would hear here and there, oh, this one got certified. And it was very inspiring, because...
Now, wait, is there a difference between certified and authorized?
Yes. So certification is the highest, let's say, blessing that he would grant. And it meant that the student was ready to teach the advanced A, which is called the third series. That has completed the advanced A and even gotten a little bit into the advanced B, which is 4 series. That was the parameter. Certification meant that you could teach the third series to other people. Mm-hmm. And it was very inspiring, when my colleagues got certified, and I remember when Harmony got certified, it was beautiful. It was just like for all of us, like a huge wow, It was lovely. And these people were very inspiring, Jay. We're all like, they had something special. I don't know. Personally, for me, my friends that have been certified before he died, they're all very incredible people. They're very like... how can I say, they're walking the talk, they're like, in a way.
So it's not just about them being able to do the series then?
No, but it was, it was important for them to have this third series because that was the certification. It meant that they could teach to others.
I know, but see, it's we've got to a really big question that I was hoping we would get to today because... I've heard you speak and many other Ashtanga practitioners speak about the kind of process of working with the series and then at some point realizing whether or not I can do the asana is not like the indicator of my spiritual development or something, or like it's not the ultimate goal of practice to be able to do poses. However, the way that you're determining whether or not someone's authorized or certified to teach is whether or not they can do the poses. There's a little bit of a paradox there, isn't it?
Let me explain. It was just like in university, like for me, like a lawyer, I have to complete all my curriculum to be able to, to graduate as a lawyer. Then if I want to do a master's, I have to complete the curriculum to get my master's. If I want to do a PhD, I have to complete the curriculum. That was assumed. It was assumed that, and of course, there were personal qualities and the relationship between them and Sharath. Of course, that's a different, that's more subjective. But it was assumed that they were ready to teach the advanced A, at least. At least that's how it was. And this was confirmed to me by two of these certified teachers after all these conversations started. So...
Yeah, it's very interesting because I think one of the things that's always come up when we talk about any kind of like certification or what qualifies someone to be a yoga teacher, people like whatever in the yoga world, they decided to make it hours or something because they were trying to look for like an objective metric. And there really isn't an objective metric. But in Ashtanga, it's interesting because there is this, like you said, a curriculum or objective metric, but it is subjective about whether or not your teacher gives you the next pose. And I think that's right. I think it is subjective, that it is like the judgment of a teacher to decide whether or not they think that that person that studied with them is qualified or not in a way.
Yeah, because we were all trusting him, of course. I mean, I trusted him completely. When he had me doing second and third series together, Jay, for 9 years after my pregnancies. And I had honestly, I said, he forgot about me. He's never going to move me. He's never going to split me, because some of my friends were split and they were taking half of the previous series and they only had to deal with the next one. He never split me. He had me do 2 series every day for 9 years. It was so hard. And I trusted him. And now that I'm doing my advanced B, I understand why he did that. Because he needed to create strength in me. Because after my pregnancies, I was completely open. And he knew that my body, especially, and I was, I had my last baby when I was 45. So
I have to say, like, people listening to this, like, who've come in, don't necessarily know what second and third series is. I do. Those are really challenging things to be doing with your body. And I don't know, I'm like 52. And like when I was in my 20s, I was doing some of that stuff. But like, I also recently heard, and maybe you don't agree with this, but I did hear someone talking about, even Sharath talking about dropping Marichasana D, which was one of the poses that I hurt my knee in.
Oh.
And I guess I wonder, do you think that it seemed to me that there had been some evolution and some softening of the system, but it doesn't sound like that necessarily for you if you're still working on those super intense poses.
Well, I was before I was injured.
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll get to that. But I mean, in general, do you think, maybe it's just true for somebody, but not for everybody, that like as you get older, don't you think that your body would need different things and that maybe it's not so appropriate to be trying to do third series poses into your latter years? That's
the question, because, he would come to me like in the last season, like 2 seasons ago. It was my birthday. My birthday was always in January, and I was usually in Mysore. So he would come and do the Chakravandasana, and then he would come up and say, "Happy birthday," and everything. And I remember that day he asked me, "How old are you?" And I was turning 55 that year. And he says, "Oh my God," he goes, "you look younger and younger every day." I think he was doing research with me, Jay. That's what I feel, And then he said, "And you have many kids, don't you?" And I said, "Yes, Guruji, I have 7.
And you're not in pain from doing that stuff to your body? Like you still feel good?
No, I was super happy. I was feeling so good. Now in February when I went, I was super happy. I'm already into 4 series. I was doing all my 3rd and my 4th. Very, very because he gave me a very strong foundation, and all those years of repeating the series every day, 2 series per day, were super hard for me. And I cultivated a lot of patience and trust in my teacher.
And I've heard you speak about, like, through your pregnancies practicing. I remember you on Andy Keene's show, and then you talked about, like, learning to be gentle with yourself
Of course.
and like say it's okay not to do this or that. But did your teacher or the system teach you to do that, or did you just have to figure that out yourself? Because the system seems very unrelenting, especially if you're supposed to still be doing it. Although, were you instructed to like be that gentle with yourself?
No, I learned that through my motherhood. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The motherhood is a huge teacher because you completely lose your asana practice to 0 minus 0. And I had 3 babies like in a row. I had one in 2008, another one in 2010, and another one that was not planned in 2011. So it completely ruined, and I had to go back to, modify sun salutations. But there was something like, maybe I can call it like supernatural here, that even though I could not do much physically, there was like this energy moving through me, you understand? And that was going back to Mysore and doing what I could. He never said, you have to come and do the food. He never said, and he just said, you come, do what you can. And so he never pushed me. I was like feeling my body and saying, okay, this feels good. I'm not ready for this yet. Let's take it easy. Let's go back to Costa Rica, keep practicing, raising babies, go back. So I was not like in a rush for anything because, Jay, I was not there for a paper. I was there to learn.
Yeah.
That was always my thing. I was not there for a paper. When he gave me the authorizations, I was like, okay, maybe he wants me to teach this in Latin America. Okay, I trust him. But I was never there for the recognition. I never put myself like wanting to be I was working like he taught me. I was really happy to be helping people. And then a lot of people from all over the world started going to Costa Rica, from many countries in Latin America. 5 of my students are authorized. And it was a daily work, of teaching, of doing my practice, do what I could. And that was a transformation. And that's why I'm so grateful to him, because he was not pressuring me, but at the same time, he was not telling me, you cannot do it. He was allowing me to be whatever I needed to be in every trip.
Well, I mean, there must be a pretty deep drive in you to be working on those poses after all these years. That's all I'm going to say. Because, I mean, that comes from somewhere in you then, if it's not coming from your teacher asserting it on you, because that's a lot of discipline. I know what it is. And again, not everybody's bodies allow for that. Like I got injured, not necessarily at other people's hands, at my own hands from just forcing my body into things that, weren't right for it.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's very challenging, especially for your mind.
Yes, that's true.
That was what I was most interested in. I was interested in how my mind was working. And he used to say, it's all in the mind.
Yes, when you start to see like what the yoga poses, like the practice does for you in other ways in terms of awareness about how your mind does. Yes, I know what you mean.
That's what
I guess I'm curious, in the times when you were practicing with Sharath, and you mentioned the other teachers, Richard Freeman, who I've had the great pleasure to practice with as well. Great guy. He had that awesome shala in Boulder. I guess, had you ever had it happen where somebody injured you with an adjustment previously? And did you adjust students physically? Did you do hands-on adjustments?
Well, I remember I injured one of my students, and because I was not like, still I was learning, I was, experimenting with my own students, and he had not done the trainings. And so, yeah, I remember it was Prasarita Padottanasana C, and I feel so heartbroken still because of my lack of dexterity. That's the thing. And the physical adjustments, before being physical, they are energetic. So how you approach a student and the respect and the empathy and not trying to make them do what you can do, but putting yourself in their shoes. So I work a lot with pregnant women. I had a beautiful group of pregnant women, and the modified series, the primary series for the women. And there's a beautiful book on testimonies on mothers in Ashtanga yoga, by the way. And yeah, physical adjustments are, wow, they are. The thing is that I was so trusting in my teacher, because he never ever injured me. He would take me super deep in the postures, and I was.
If you are hearing this message, then you're listening to the free version of J. Brown Yoga Talks. To hear the rest of our conversation, please subscribe to Podcast Premium at jbrownyoga.com/premium.